Hi, good morning, and thank you for being with us today. September is Preparedness Month, and our team from Emergency Management has prepared a presentation with my colleague John Flint about our program, Safe Neighborhoods. John, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to this inaugural Ask Me Anything event. Hopefully we'll get a lot of good input. As Kenji said, we are kicking this off for Preparedness Month. My name's John Flint. I'm the Preparedness Coordinator for Salt Lake City and the creator of the Safe Neighborhoods program. So I'd like to start, and we've got a little bit of a presentation to do, and then hopefully have lots of good questions afterwards.
That is correct. We're going to answer all your questions, as many as we can, after the presentation. Let's go ahead and do this, John.
All right. So many of you may know, a lot of you hopefully by now have heard about the Safe Neighborhoods program. It was designed specifically to address the earthquake scenario in Salt Lake City. Obviously, this has been a very unique year. Given the earthquake that we had at the beginning of the year, it was actually in Magna, but we definitely felt it here in Salt Lake City. Immediately after, we had the fortune of being blessed with a nationwide pandemic. So hopefully as we go through this, I'll explain a little bit more, get people up to speed on the Safe Neighborhoods program, the basics of what it's about and what to do, and then we'll take your questions. So the basics of the Safe Neighborhoods program, as I said, it was built around the earthquake scenario, and it addresses the whole community's planning and post-disaster response. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here. Okay. Give me just 1 second. For some reason, I can't advance my slides. One moment.
Well, while John is trying to work our technology and the new normal, we can go ahead and tell you about the importance of being prepared. Safe Neighborhoods is not only about you and your family, but it's the importance of the whole community of being prepared. As we have noticed, many disasters not only affect us, but it's actually the whole community that gets affected. So it's very important for you not only to have a plan or an emergency plan for you, your family, and your loved ones, including your pets, but also for the whole neighborhood or at least your block. I know many of you are still used to having this type of planning or maybe being prepared due to the culture that happens here in Salt Lake City, in all Utah. But I think sometimes we have forgotten the importance of the whole community, not only your family, or like John has said before, make sure that the neighbor on the right, the neighbor on the left are ready and have an emergency plan that actually coordinates with you. How are we doing, John?
Well, I can't seem to get this to work. As it would happen, that's normal. things are working, and then all of a sudden they're not. Hang on just 1 second.
I can try to share my screen if you would like me to do that. I have the presentation ready.
Okay, hang on just 1 second. Can't believe this is happening right now.
Well, it's okay. I can go working on that. I can continue to explain our friends here the importance of safe neighborhoods. So Safe Neighborhoods was created, my colleague John Flynn created it with many other agencies to make sure not only, like I was saying, the family is ready, but the whole community. As we felt on March, which is one of the first earthquake we have felt in this era, it was not as strong as the one that we are expecting, but it reminded us the importance of all of us having a plan. What are you going to do when a big earthquake happens and maybe your partner is working maybe 5 miles from home, 10 miles, 15 miles? What are you going to do when maybe the schools reopen and there's an earthquake? What is the plan that you have to communicate? And the plan that we have to reunite everybody is utilizing the elementary public schools, which are the ones that are very close from your neighborhood. So the slogan that we have in Safe Neighborhoods is grab your kid and walk to school. We're also talking about the 96-hour kid. Now, many of us have grown up learning that we need to have a 72-hour kid, but because of the topography and the way Salt Lake City is, we need a 96-hour kit to be on the safe side. So it is very important for you to start building this kit, not only for you as an individual, but for every member of your family. And I cannot reiterate the importance of you having a plan for your pets. Now, also, it's important for having a plan for the bigger pets, for people like you that maybe have horses or maybe you have hens. You need to understand or make a plan of what are you going to do. Make sure that at the moment you need to maybe have an evacuation, you're ready to do so. You have no idea how many times we have seen that in many other communities outside Utah, because when they're going through disasters and we ask for people or communities to evacuate, and the time that they take is longer than the time that we can give them. So it is very important for you to know the evacuation routes. What are you going to do when you receive that alert of you have 5 minutes to evacuate? It can be not only for an earthquake, it can be for a snowstorm, and it can be for a wildfire, which we have seen plenty lately. So it is very important for you to start creating an emergency plan and really have that 96-hour kit on the go, something that you can carry, not only for you, but like I said, for every member of the family. If you have little ones, then you need to make sure that your little ones also have something that they can feel comfortable with, that they can remove some of the stress. It may be a blanket, a very soft blanket that they love. It can be maybe a toy, their favorite toy. It can be coloring books, something that they can remove the stress from your young ones. And it can be maybe for you too. So Safe Neighborhoods program is it's a program that teaches you how to start creating a plan, how to start really thinking about preparation, and how to start really communicating with your neighbors in order for you to have a communal plan, a community plan that really connects all of the neighborhoods, because when the big one comes, you and your neighbors are going to be the first responders for those around you.
Okay, I think we got it going, Kenja.
Oh, yes. Thank you, John.
All right, let's try this again. And to follow on what Kenji was saying, this is actually a good segue into the actual first slide, because the Safe Neighborhoods program, it's actually the community plan for the earthquake disaster. And what it does is it provides the means for neighborhood residents within their elementary school neighborhood to open, staff, and operate their own neighborhood evacuation hub until we can start to get outside resources in the area. Obviously, it's going to be a large scale event and we will respond, but we can't respond to everyone all at once. So the basics of the program is, number one, to teach everyone to create a 96-hour kit. And the tagline, as Ken just said, was grab your kit and walk to school in the event of the earthquake. And it's also obviously relies on the neighbors helping neighbors philosophy, in that each individual neighborhood is going to be on their own until we can get those outside resources in. If you look at this next slide, it shows a graphic of the modeling we've done that shows the projected shake damage from a 7.0 earthquake in the Salt Lake City area. There's 4 different colors on the graphic. You can obviously see the red and yellow fairly well. There's some green, but to give you an idea, the green dots represent anywhere from 5 to 30% shake damage. The yellow represents 30 to 70%, and the red represents 70 to 100% damage. So you can see that on the large scale that most of Salt Lake City incurs at least some moderate to, if not severe, damage. But this also applies to the entire Salt Lake Valley if you follow this mapping all the way down to the end of the valley. So the idea behind the Safe Neighborhoods, again, is the whole community's approach. It's going to be obviously the government response entities, but also organizations like the Red Cross, the Community Emergency Response Team Program, Medical Reserve Corps, church groups, volunteers and community groups, and others. So to put this in one sort of graphic that's easier to understand, everything starts with personal and household preparedness. And I express this even amongst our professional response agencies, such as police department, fire department, others, because it's key to make sure that you and your household is prepared to actually be able to do things to respond to help your neighbors as well. And then building on that personal preparedness foundation, you have those other existing programs like CERT, Amateur Radio, Red Cross, and others that can actually start that neighborhood response to be able to actually implement the SAFE components that you see there in the roof type graphic, doing the household reunification, setting up communications, being able to gain that situational awareness and those other things to pass that information on to emergency management. Because our jobs in emergency management, first off, are going to be to identify the neighborhoods with the greatest impact and need. Then we're going to have to try to establish the communication and transportation routes as well as evacuation hubs. And then we have to be able to gather that information to understand where we need to send the resources first and which neighborhoods we're going to have to send them to and which are most critical. So that being said, the objectives for the neighborhoods to enable the emergency management for us to be able to do our job is going to be that initial assessment of the impacts in each neighborhood. You're going to need to be able to establish a reception area for displaced people in your neighborhood, facilitate that household reunification, and then coordinate the best efforts to supply for the basic human needs, medical needs, transportation, communication, and public information. And it's also being able to coordinate with existing plans that may exist in your neighborhood, or actually, hopefully, with presentations like this one, get more involved and start to develop some inter-neighborhood plans, and then partnership with the non-governmental organizations and obviously your schools in your neighborhood, and then with the governmental emergency response entities. So, and able to make this happen, or to enable the neighborhoods to take care of themselves, there's what we have called just-in-time kits that have been placed in every elementary school in Salt Lake County. And what it does is it contains the contents to be able to provide direction and instructions on how to do that in your neighborhood. This next graphic I'm showing you shows you what one of these just-in-time kits looks like. You'll notice on the upper left-hand corner where it says, there's a graphic that says stop. If you'll notice the next picture over, it's a big, huge piece of paper. And what it is it's essentially instructions that when you open the lid to that box, you will see. And what it does is it explains how to use those things inside the kit. And what it has done is broken things down and provides step-by-step instructions broken down into functional components of how to organize your neighborhood, to start making those assessments and get that information onto us in emergency management. Here's another graphic of what that looks like. It's a little closer up graphic of what that kit looks like. To give you an example, there's an organizational chart which breaks down everything that's going to need to be done in that neighborhood. And you'll see where I've got it circled and the arrow pointed. We've created a position, just an example, called Special Needs Coordinator. Everything that needs to be done is on a simple 1 to 2 page checklist, and you just follow those instructions in that checklist for how to do each one of the tasks that's going to be need to be done. And so by doing that, what it allows us in emergency management is to create what we call situational awareness. In other words, we can begin to understand where the greatest impacts are in the city and then be able to respond accordingly. Also, in each one of those, the just-in-time kits is an actual, that in each neighborhood is broken down into grids. There are maps in the box and broken down block by block to allow teams like CERT teams and others to be able to go house to house in such a fashion that nobody is skipped or nobody is missed, and it allows the neighborhoods to account for everyone in that neighborhood to then be able to get that information back to us via the other components. And one of the other components that's really critical of the Safe Neighborhoods program is our amateur radio operators. We have made it so that amateur radio operators from across the city can set up their radios in those schools that are going to be used as the hubs for the response in each neighborhood. And then they can transmit directly that information from those neighborhoods to the fire department and emergency management as appropriate. And then that way we get that information directly from the neighborhoods. So one of the things that we talk about is prepare for the disruptions, not the disaster. In other words, what that means is taking things in sort of a piece by piece assessment. If you try to look at a disaster as a whole, it seems overwhelming, but just prepare for the things that you're gonna have to deal with at the moment. The lack of communication, physical separation from loved ones or family members, the loss of shelter and sanitation, the interruption of other basic services and utilities. What this means is it's critical for each person, each household, each family member to have their own 96-hour kit that is going to contain the sorts of things that they need. Say if you were going to go on a trip or say go camping for 4, 5, 6 days, what kind of things would you need and what kind of things would you need to be prepared for? So to conclude this little short presentation, hopefully this has spawned some other questions that we can answer directly. But the next steps after this is obviously spread the information to your organizations, groups, friends, neighbors, and then host a neighborhood orientation where we can come and talk. Obviously, during these times, it's very different, but we can actually, just much like we're doing this through our office, we can set up a video meeting like this where we could have an exchange of ideas and do more training and education. And then obviously continue working with emergency management in Salt Lake City, as well as establishing that relationship with your elementary school, finding out where the just-in-time kit is located in your elementary school, and then create and participate in your own neighborhood exercises. There are things that you can do as a neighborhood that you don't necessarily need the input of emergency management. Once you understand the basics and learn how to use that just-in-time kit, all the forms, the maps, and everything that is included in that just-in-time kit at the school is going to be available through our office electronically. That way you don't have to take things and disrupt the kit that's located in the school. That way it's intact and in place for when you need it. So that's pretty much the end of this live broadcast stream as far as the presentation. For more information, obviously go to the emergency management website at bereadyslc.com.
Thank you so much for that. I'm having some feedback. Let me see. Is this better? Perfect. Is this better? Okay. Okay. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
I can.
Seems that some of the frequent questions that we have received is, what about COVID? Like, let's say happens a big earthquake and then we all run to the closest elementary public school. And what are the precautions? What are the plans that you have implemented into SAFE now to COVID?
Regarding the COVID pandemic, and I mean, obviously, as we saw earlier in the year, of course, we have a better understanding of the COVID now than we did when it happened. But the best thing you can do is obviously the standard precautions that everyone's taking. Um, Keep in mind, obviously, when you're in a disaster, you're not in an ideal situation, but to the best of your ability, when you're, setting up reception areas and things like that in your neighborhood, obviously maintaining the social distancing, taking basic prophylactic protocols. In other words, make sure, and this again needs to be part of putting your 96-hour kit in place and then establishing that relationship with your elementary school. Obviously, if you go to the Salt Lake City School District's website, they list the precautions that they have in place, obviously for school now that it's started back, with the sanitizers and things that they have on hand there. However, you have to understand that it's, the whole community, the whole neighborhood's responsibility to make sure that you have things like masks, whether they're cloth masks, disposable masks, your own hand sanitizer, and things like that. Obviously, we'll try to get more of those supplies in as we're able to establish points of distribution and things for emergency supplies that are coming in. But for that first 5-6 days or so, it's going to be the responsibility of individuals and the neighborhoods as a whole to make sure that you're practicing those protocols that have been outlined by the mayor's office, the county health department, and from the governor's office on maintaining social distancing. One of the other things that I might throw out there, obviously, because I see it a lot, is, it's not just wearing the mask, it's wearing the mask properly. And more importantly, if you're wearing the cloth masks, not the disposable ones, that you keep those clean and sanitized as much as possible. That's just one of the basic protocols that you need to practice and be very good at, because like many other things in a disaster, supplies are going to be limited. Water is going to be limited. Sanitary supplies are going to be limited. So just keep that in mind as you plan to go forward.
Yes, that is right. You touch a very important point regarding sanitation. Hear me?
You broke up there just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that you touch a very important point regarding sanitation. Sometimes we forget that in a disaster, we won't have the hand sanitizer available to us, or Clorox wipes, or something that is going to really disinfect, right? The same as a portable potty. It's something that we just use on a daily basis, and we don't realize that we might not have it in a very big disaster. So we have another question from our frequently asked questions that our community has sent. And it's about, what about the neighborhoods that are very diverse, and there's many cultures, religions, and languages all in one little space? How can we organize all of us?
Well, that's one of the most important parts about the Safe Neighborhoods program, and why it's so important that neighborhoods respond as a whole and start to build these relationships within the neighborhood, because there are so many different languages, religions, cultures, specifically within Salt Lake City proper, that each one of those become involved and not sort of isolate themselves into their own cultural cliques or communities or things like that without taking that into consideration. It's important, especially important for people who are bilingual, to become involved in part of that neighborhood planning in their own neighborhood to account for those sorts of things, because let's face it, language is one thing, but then there are also cultural differences that not everybody may be aware of, where, only certain people are allowed to, in within certain distances or within certain company of others for whatever cultural or religious reasons. And I, obviously don't think that anyone would intentionally, do anything to violate those norms or principles of specific cultures, religions. But that's why it's important for everyone to be involved in their neighborhood, so that though there aren't any misunderstandings, and so that is coordinated and worked into the neighborhood's response plan. Every neighborhood in Salt Lake City is somewhat different. So my response to that is get involved, be a part of the solution.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Another question that we have is, what about our ADA community? Seems like sometimes we just are playing catch up with them rather than actually planning with them regarding their needs and accommodations. How safe neighborhoods accommodates our ADA community?
Right, and much like the previous answer I just gave, obviously, as a matter of fact, in the example in the presentation that I gave, the position that was specifically set aside for a special needs coordinator, I know that's not the potentially politically correct term or the things but when we did the beta testing of the program and to make sure that we were using language that everyone understood. The idea is that is actually a specific program or part of the Safe Neighborhoods program that was actually built into the program. I personally actually went to every single school and did the uh, assessments on the school for ADA accommodations. Keep in mind, these are elementary schools, so they're made for smaller people, obviously, and some of the ADA accommodations may not be as they would in most other public buildings. But I did go through, do the inspections, and then also put documentation in those just-in-time kits for people who may not be as familiar, so they can go down and look, and if they follow those checklists, then they will make sure that they account for each one of those potential ADA type items. And much like the other, it's very important for if there are people in the community, whether they are deaf, hard of hearing, sight impaired, blind, that they actually become part of that planning group in their community so that these things aren't missed.
John, and another part of our community is our homeless community. How is Safe Neighborhoods accommodating or helping this community in the big earthquake?
Right. Well, right now, the community, like the neighborhood community portion of the Safe Neighborhoods program, is pretty intact and been implemented for a while now. We are still working on part of the there's the residential side of the Safe Neighborhoods program, and then there's part of the business district side of the Safe Neighborhoods program. Most of, not all, but most of the homeless tend to congregate or be in sort of the downtown business district portion of the city. And much like the neighborhoods where we've set up sort of gridded off the entire city and the neighborhoods by elementary school districts, we've divided up the downtown business district in much the same way, and working as far as coordinating the homeless population response in with the business district response in the downtown area. And we'll be setting up shelters and things like that, just as we're doing in the residential neighborhood, also for the downtown business districts as well.
And the questions that we just have received is, okay, what if the school is closed? How do I get in? It's closed, and let me see, it says, and then when should I stay at home after the earthquake? Because we just had one in March and people kind of went out, but then that's it. And then we went in. So how do you know when your home is safe, or how do you know when to go to the school? And if it's closed, what do we do?
This has been one of the ongoing questions. And as a matter of fact, we ended up getting legislation passed in 2017 that sort of grants the immunity, much like governmental immunity, A lot of people don't like to think about these in these terms, but in disasters, they're not ideal situations. Um, Obviously, the elementary schools have been chosen because there are lots of them, and they're equally sort of dispersed around the city. So it's easier to set up distribution points. And essentially, the schools are going to act as operational hubs and coordination hubs and places to get information. As far as the actual access to the school, again, this comes as part of the building that relationship within the neighborhoods with the schools. Um, and there is a large likelihood that school will be in session, but if it's not, there may be other means that people have to take to make access to the school. And as silly as it may sound on the surface, in a disaster, it may be, breaking the window of a front door until you can get access to the inside to get where you can set up the just-in-time kit and start making those assignments in the box. I mean, ideally, there would be coordination on the neighborhood level, where a sort of a central core group in the neighborhood established a good working relationship with the principal of the schools, the teachers, the staff, and they coordinate how that would happen in each neighborhood before the disaster happens. I mean, the breaking the window to make access, that's obviously a worst case scenario. But again, that is a worst case scenario that may have to happen. But that's part of the way the program was designed. And again, I can't stress how much it's important to actually build those relationships with the residents in the community and the school beforehand to create plans and those workarounds on how that's happening. Some of the teachers and staff school, someone may live in the neighborhood or close to the neighborhood that would be able to get to the school and actually unlock the school and provide that access. But worst case scenario, that's what would happen. And people don't have to worry about, getting sued or the litigation, because that is part of the official response. And this is a state sanctioned program for, in the case of an earthquake, there's an understanding that those sorts of things may have to happen to actually benefit the response and safety of the neighborhood at large.
Thank you, John. And as a resident, how we start this process? Okay, now I know about safe neighborhoods. Then what is my first step right now after seeing this presentation? Do I need to connect with the school? What would you suggest we need to start doing right now?
One of the first things that I would do is obviously you can contact our office, the emergency management office. But again, this program is in place. Those kits are in the schools. The teachers and the staff and the principals all should know about the kits and the program. I would say it's sort of a multi-pronged approach. Contact our office for any questions you may have as far as materials about the program specifically, and then contact the schools and make that contact with your school principal and try to work out, especially right now, because one of the last things we want to do is cause a greater burden on the elementary schools, especially in what we're having to deal with now with the COVID pandemic. So what I would recommend is that not everyone individually try to contact the principal of the school. Sort of start, whether it's in a church group, a civic group, like your local, say, Rotary Club or your church group or something, and try to come together as a community if there are organized groups in your community already, and sort of appoint a lead person that could maybe be that point person, so that we don't have lots of people just bombarding the schools, um, trying to make access and see where the Safe Neighborhoods kit is. Our office can facilitate that process with certain community groups. And then obviously, as I said, it's not as easy now for us to go to neighborhoods and do individual presentations, but would be happy to set up a video presentation much like this for specific neighborhoods, if that's what people want and would like to do.
Okay, and what about some of the residents that they already have a plan, maybe with their community church? How Safe Neighborhoods works or supports that plan? Do I need to still go and register at the school? Like, how? Explain to us, how will that work?
Okay, well, you don't necessarily register with the school. Again, it's kind of like I referred to before. It starts on the neighborhood level. Um, okay, I want to make sure I'm answering this. State exactly what you're saying again. What was the question?
Yeah, question that I received is, yeah, what about if some of the residents, they already have a plan with their own church? Like, do they have to also include this Safe Neighborhoods plan?
Oh,
How?
yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Right. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and the Safe Neighborhoods program was created not to replace any other plans that are may already uh, be applicable in any given neighborhood. It's actually designed in such a way that you can take those existing programs and sort of plug them into, if you remember that organizational chart that I showed, there are certain things that have to happen, whether it's going the door to door. There's a lot of neighborhoods that already have like block captains and things assigned, that will tie seamlessly into the Safe Neighborhoods program as it exists. As you and that's again one of the other reasons to become familiar with the just-in-time kits, what's included in those. The maps and things that are included in the just-in-time kit may be a little bit different than some of the plans. If a neighborhood is already has like block captains and things like that, just be able to actually access those materials. And again, those are available through our website, the things that are located in the just-in-time kit, and compare those and just look and determine as a neighborhood how what your plans may be can plug into the just-in-time kit as it is, as far as doing your door-to-door searches and things like that. Those were created. Again, this program is applicable county-wide, so not every neighborhood is prepared as well as others. Some are not at all, some are really well, but we had to design a program that would be sort of a universal approach to provide a means for neighborhoods who may not have anything in place to be able to do what they need to do. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, because it's also linked to the other question that I received is, should the entire family go and check in at the school, or like you were mentioning, just a representative? Like, I'm assuming this question goes into, I guess, if they already had a plan in the church, but they just want to let the government or us know that everybody's okay. Yes,
Right.
I guess, yeah.
One
So how will they should do
one
it?
of one of the best things, and that's a very good question, and I'm glad it was asked, simply because the schools themselves are not physically designed to be used as shelters. That's one of the other things that's going to have to be worked out neighborhood by neighborhood, as far as immediately after setting up some ad hoc shelters for people to stay and gather. But it does need to be coordinated through the elementary school being that hub where people know that they can go for information. But yeah, if and it again, if and this is part of the way of what happens in a disaster. Um, Individuals will need to sort of make a judgment call of whether they think that it's safe to stay in their home. As the door-to-door search and rescue ad hoc operations are happening by the materials, say, just that are laid out in the just-in-time kit. um, you know, if you think it's safe for you to stay in your home until outside help gets there, or an official Red Cross shelter gets set up, then yeah, you can send one representative from your home to the school to check in every so often to get information, or to let them know that, yeah, hey, I'm so and so, I live here. Everyone is our family's okay, but this is where we're going to be. But yeah, that's probably the best approach to use regarding where to go, how to check in. And then the other thing too is, as people are going neighborhood by neighborhood, they've got those maps that are included block by block, house by house, that they can check off who lives here, how many are in the household, are there any injured, and do a sort of a patient assessment and as well as a structural assessment, and get that information back to the school. So then it can be relayed to the emergency management and emergency response organizations. So the answer is, yeah, you can stay at your home if you feel it's safe. If not, then that's part of the neighborhood planning that needs to occur to say, okay, well, these homes aren't safe, but there is this church down the street, or this church building, or this civic center, or some other facility that we can actually use for the meantime to house people in until we can get help from the outside.
And that goes to the next question. It's a great segue. Great segue for our next question, which is, when will help arrive after a big earthquake, after the big magnitude earthquake that we are expecting? And just, I will answer this question. Your legal status does not matter in safe neighborhoods. This is about all of us to be working together to be safe. But
correct.
How do we know it's gonna take only 2-3 days? Like, when will help really get here, and how do we know that? Like, why
Right.
6
Well,
hours?
and that's the big question even for us. Again, we've done the modeling. We know where the greatest amount of damage is projected to happen. We do have agreements with resources outside Valley, even other states and the federal government. But that's why we're telling people, at a minimum, be prepared to be on your own for at least 96 hours. It may take 96 hours is 4 days, but it may take 5, 6, maybe even 7 days, depending on what part of the city you live in, the level of damage that has been done, simply because there are only so many emergency response resources to go around. I mean, yeah, we're going to respond to everyone. We just can't respond to everyone all at the same time. So again, that's why it's critically important for people to become involved with the Safe Neighborhoods program and be able to have their neighborhood organized as well as possible, because we're going to rely on getting the information from the neighborhoods for us to be able to make those critical response decisions at the emergency management level. So the better information that we can get in, due to the level of coordination in each neighborhood, the better we're going to be able to make those response decisions and respond appropriately. So in short, be prepared, minimum 4 days, at least, and then maybe as long as 7 days. But we will have communications, we will get communications established, even if we have to send city personnel individually to physically go to those elementary schools to gather information, should there not be some sort of radio or telephone or other communication available.
So we've been talking about, okay, if the big one happens, I grab my kid and walk to school. But what about my older kid that is probably going to college? Or what about my partner that is probably working far away from Salt Lake City? How is our reunification plan? How are we going to get united? How does that work?
Right. Well, and that's part of the biggest. Well, that's the biggest part of the tagline, is the grab your kit, walk to school. The idea behind that is that no matter where you are in Salt Lake County, the fastest way for you to be taken care of and to get in contact and to get where you need to be is to get to the nearest elementary school, because we've coordinated with Salt Lake County, all 5 school districts, UTA, and we're going to be setting up transportation corridors as far as emergency route clearance, across the entire county. So the idea is that the elementary schools will become those transportation and evacuation hubs. So you get to that elementary school and say you live in, say, Draper City, but you work in Salt Lake City, and you have other family members that work other places. The idea is that, say, for instance, I'm in downtown Salt Lake, but I need to get back to Draper. The idea is to get to the closest elementary schools or one of the other evacuation hubs that we'll establish in the downtown business district. But the idea is that you will take a Salt Lake City school district bus. You'll be making several stops, but to get from that elementary school to maybe a middle school to a high school, which the high schools are going to be those interjurisdictional transportation hubs, as well as a few locations downtown, and you will take that to that location, then maybe get on a UTA or U of U bus to go from there to across, the valley to the other jurisdiction, get off at that high school or other established transportation hub, and then get on that school district school bus to get to the elementary school that's closest to your home or where you need to get. It sounds a little bit complicated, but that's the way disasters work. It may take a while, but again, that's why the Safe Neighborhoods program is so important, because it is part of actually working into the overall emergency evacuation, transportation, and all of those other emergency support functions that have been established from the federal level. That's where it ties into those transportation and evacuation plans.
Well, September is Preparedness Month. September is Preparedness Month, and I know we are all very busy and trying to adapt to everything that is going on. If there's one thing that I can get done this month, or that we can get done this month, what do you will tell our residents, whoever is watching, that we should get done this month?
The number one thing, well, there's a few things, but number one thing, obviously, with September being National Preparedness Month, if you don't have a 96-hour kit, put one together. You can access the information on our website on what to do, what you need in a 96-hour kit. If you do have a 96-hour kit put together already, I want to stress that National Preparedness Month, we're moving into fall, so we're transitioning from warm weather to the cold weather months, and it's an opportune time to go through and make sure that your 96-hour kit is seasonally appropriate. In other words, there are clothes and things that you may have in your 96-hour kit for the warm weather months that may not be appropriate for cold weather months. You don't want to be, having to trek across if there's an earthquake, and the only thing you've got in your 96-hour kit are t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops, which I don't recommend the flip-flops anyway, because regardless of the time of year, you need good sturdy shoes or boots that, you're going to be walking, hiking boots. But anyway, weather appropriate things, seasonally appropriate things in your 96-hour kit, as well as doing things like checking your medications and things like that have prescriptions or expiration dates. Change out batteries in your flashlights, radios, anything else like that. But that's the opportune time to do that. And as well as obviously making sure that your home is safe and prepared. Make sure that you check your smoke detectors, batteries in your smoke detectors in your home, and other things like that.
Our website is bereadyslc.com, bereadyslc.com, and we have so much information regarding our 96-hour kit. And we have mentioned 9 very specific basic items. And John, what will you recommend besides the 9 items, which I would like to explain what those 9 items are? What else we need to start adding into our 96-hour kit? I know we're all very tight for everything that is going on. So what are the basics, and how will you still, keep adding into that emergency kit?
Right. That's a good question, because obviously there are quite a few things that need to go in a 96-hour kit, and people may not be able to get everything all at once, which is okay. But at the very least, even if you start getting one item a month and start putting your kit together, pull some things aside, and just start doing it that way. Obviously, food, water, clothing, medications, first aid kit. Those are probably the primary top 5 things that you need in your kit, as well as, a toolkit, or, depending on what kinds of food supplies that you have, whether they're freeze-dried or, dehydrated. Obviously, those are things that you need to think about. And then obviously you need to think about you can go buy kits off of a shelf, but the most critical thing is making that kit personalized for you. Because say you have heart disease or you're diabetic or things, you need to make sure that you have medications that are appropriate for you in your kit, and just make sure that it's personalized for you.
Thank you, John. And our last question to wrap up, and to remind everybody that they can find this information at BeReadySLC.com, or they can go ahead and send us questions to BeReadySLC@SLCGOV.com. And we're going to be very happy to go ahead and respond any kind of questions that you have. The last question is, how do we stay involved and engaged if we want to get more information, or if we want to be more engaged with emergency preparedness? How do we get more involved?
Obviously, as far as where to go for the information, as you've stated multiple times, the Be Ready SLC, our website, emergency management website, we have information on the CERT program, amateur radio, fix the bricks, just about anything emergency management related should be on our site. And if it's not, we can get you to the right source for the information that you need. As far as how to get involved, again, if you are not already affiliated with a group, talk to your neighbors, and then see if they're affiliated with any church organization or civic organization or any other sort of organization that's in your neighborhood, and then start there, and build on that and go from there. Let's see, what was the other? As far as staying engaged, obviously, visit our website, take other training classes. Obviously, this has been a really weird year. And oh, sorry, moved my computer. But starting next year, we are going to try to start re-implementing the CERT program. We have information where that program specifically now has been moved to, you can take all of the in-class portion of the CERT program online. We've created that in cooperation with the University of Utah and the state, where we have that in English and in Spanish, that you can take the entire classroom portion of that online and print off a certificate that you've completed that. And then starting in the spring, hopefully, we will be able to actually be able to finish those courses. So what you can do now is take the online in-class portion, and then we will set aside a couple of days to actually where you can come in and do the actual hands-on portion, like the fire extinguisher training portion, the bandaging, search and rescue drills, and things like that, to actually complete your CERT training. Also, we will be looking toward to putting together more amateur radio classes. But the other thing is, even outside of what we in Salt Lake City Emergency Management offer in the way of training, contact the Red Cross. One of the things that I, obviously with the Safe Neighborhoods program, encourage people to do at the very least is take a couple of classes on shelter training, become shelter manager certified, because then you could actually even respond outside of the area and gain more experience on how to be able to do that. And that way, when it does happen here, be much more prepared. As well as, it's always a good idea to take a CPR class and other things like that. And we can always point people in the right direction for any kind of training that they would like to do. Just contact our office and we'll let you know where to go.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, John. And this is a wrap. Again, I appreciate all of you that have invested the time and giving us your time to watch this presentation. Our website is BeReadySLC.com. You can write us to BeReadySLC@SLCGOV.com and ask for any type of questions about more how to be engaged, how to get involved, what other trainings are available for you. But without further ado, thank you so much and have an amazing week. Bye. Nice seeing you.
You too, Kendra. Take care.